What up, YouTube? Welcome to my channel. I'm Anthony TV. And look, if you're new to the channel, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button for me, like this video, and drop a comment if you got some comments. So look guys, today I'm gonna give you all the details on how I lost $3,500 on a wholesale deal. For those that don't know, may be new to the channel, or you may just be watching this for the first time as just a general viewer. I have a wholesaling business. It's called Creative Realty and Investments. See my hat? And I wholesale houses. I'm an investor as well. So this particular wholesale deal was potentially a $3,500 profit for me if I could have closed on the deal. But I'm gonna tell you guys what happened. I'm gonna give you the story, give you all the details as to why this deal fell through, right? So to start from the beginning, how I got this deal, first and foremost, was a buddy I went to school with. We actually grew up together, to be honest with you. We're from the same neighborhood. He knew that I was buying houses. And when I say buying houses, how I wholesale properties is I actually partner with other investors that we call cash buyers to bring their money to the table to actually buy the property with. I'm basically the middleman of the transaction. So I find a seller who's willing to sell the property at a discount. Once I get the property under contract with the seller, I then go find a buyer that's willing to buy the property at another price, higher than what I got it under contract for with the first seller, right? So for example, if I find a property and I get it under contract with seller A for $30,000, I'm gonna go find a buyer who's willing to buy that property for more than what I got it under contract for. So let's just say $35,000, right? So I got it under contract for $30,000 with the seller, and I'll get another contract with the buyer for $35,000, right? So $30,000 from $35,000 leaves how much profit? That difference is $5,000. So in that particular scenario, I would make a $5,000 profit on that. And so this particular deal, my buddy called me up. He was like, hey bro, I got a house I want to sell, me and my brother. It's my grandmother's old house, but my mother is living in there now. But we're getting ready to put her into hospice, right? So the house is gonna be vacant when we move her out of there. So I'm like, okay, cool. Send me over the information and let me take a look at it. So he sent me over all the information, the address and all that. I did some research on the property. I found out what the value of the property was. And you know, it took me a few minutes and I ended up calling him back with an offer, right? So I asked him, you know, what he was looking to get for the property. And he told me he wasn't really trying to get much for it. So he threw out a number and he wanted $30,000 for the house, right? So I'm like, okay. After I looked at the property, I seen what the value was, I seen the potential it had, and I seen what some of the other properties were selling for in the area, the comps. If you're a realtor, you know what comps are. You may have heard the terminology before, but comps are just properties in the surrounding area of that subject property, right? So you look at similar houses in the area that's similar to the subject property, and you base the value of it, of your subject property, to houses that have already sold in the area that's similar, right? So I seen what some of the other houses similar to that house sold for in the area and things of that nature. And so I knew what I could offer my friend for the house, right? So, like I said, he wanted 30,000, and 30,000 actually wasn't a bad deal. So that's what I was agreed to give him for the house, right? So I ended up calling him back. The numbers made sense for me, so I'm like, okay, give you 30,000. Let me go and take a look at it. So all of this was, you know, off seeing pictures and stuff like that. When I went down to take a look at the house, you know, the house was in very rough shape. It needed a lot of work done to it, but you know, the 30,000 still made sense, right? So after I got in a contract with him, he told me that the house was his grandmother's house, but his mother, which was his grandmother's daughter, inherited the property, right? When his grandmother passed away, she left it to his mother and his mother's sister, so it was two of them, right? His mother's sister had already passed away though, so his mother was the only one living currently, and also the mother's sister had a daughter, so she basically was an heir to the property, right? So in the will, so he told me like, look, we got the will to the property, my brother power of attorney, and we both agreed that we're going to sell the property. You know, we ready to sell it, you know, as soon as we move out of here, take about a week or so, and we'll have her out of here, and we'll be all good to go and set this, be ready to sell. So I'm like, all right. So got under contract with him for 30,000. My intentions was to, you know, find a buyer for 35,000. I wanted to make $5,000 off this deal. So my intentions was to sell it, the contract. For those that don't know, when you wholesale a property, you get what's called equitable interest in the property once you put it under contract. So once you put it under contract with the original homeowner, now you have the rights to sell the contract, just the paper, to another investor, which is what we call a cash buyer, right? So I'm selling the interest that I now have in this property. So I found a cash buyer. The cash buyer was super excited about the property. They wanted the property really bad. When I got with the cash buyer, I told the cash buyer, okay, 35,000 is what I want for this property. So the cash buyer, we negotiated a little bit. They didn't want to spend 35 for it, so they kept trying to talk me down. They went under 30, which is definitely was a no-go because I already got it under contract for 30,000, so I can't go lower than 30,000, right? So anyway, to make a long story short, with the buyer, I ended up getting it under contract with them for $33,500, right? So that's where the $3,500 come in at. I got it under contract with the seller for 30, and I got another contract with the buyer for $33,500, right? So once I got both contracts, I ended up emailing the contracts to the title company to open up escrow and get the process started, get the title search started, and making sure we can get a clear and clean title on the property, right? Okay, so a couple weeks go by, still no title. So I end up calling the title company like, hey, can you give me the status on the title search? What's going on? And it was still basically, you know, held up. It was still kind of ongoing thing. So it was a little delay with the title search. But finally, I guess after maybe 3 weeks or so, somewhere around there, I finally get an email from the title company telling me that the title or the property has to go through probate in order for the transaction to in order for us to move forward the transaction, right? So for those that don't know, probate is essentially when it's the legal process in which an estate has to go through the courts to be settled, right? So if a property is willed to a family member by another, obviously, family member, and it's not in a trust, when they pass away, it has to go through the probate process, right? They have to settle that through the courts now. And sometimes there's multiple people that the property was inherited to or willed to. So basically, in order to be fair to everybody involved, it goes through the courts, and those people have to agree if they want to sell that property or not. They have to all agree to want to sell the property before it can be sold. So in this case, there were 3 people that the property was basically willed to. My friend's mother, her sister, which had already passed away, and her daughter, right? Her daughter was still living. So, but his brother had POA over the property, which is power of attorney for those that don't know. So his brother had power of attorney over the property. So he had the authority to control the estate on that end. However, like I said, there was still another person involved, which was his mother's sister's daughter, who had some say-so, and she had rights to the property as well, right? So after a lot of back and forth, basically his mother's sister's daughter, which is his cousin, she didn't want to sign off on a contract, right? She didn't want to move forward with selling the property. So that basically killed the deal, because in order to move forward with the transaction, if it's got to go through the probate process, all parties have to agree. If you're selling that property, then they have to agree to, everybody has to say, yes, I want to sell the property. But if one person doesn't agree, then can't sell the property, right? So now I got my buyer, they're like really wanting the house, wanting to know what's going on. So we were in communication. So I'm going back and forth because I'm basically the middleman transaction. So I'm communicating with my buddy, finding out like what's the status, have you guys agreed on it, blase, blase. And then my buyer, we're going back and forth through text messages and phone calls, like, she asking me what's going on with the property, and all that. So I'm keeping her updated on the process. So like I said, to make a long story short, that deal fell through because one of the relatives basically didn't want to sign off on the contract and didn't want to sell the property, right? So that $3,500 profit that I was gonna make on that deal, I didn't make. So in the title, I say I lost $3,500, but really, it wasn't really a loss, but it was a potential deal that fell through because of that reason, the relative not wanting to sign off on the property. So those type of things happen, unfortunately, in this business. Probate sucks because there's no timeline on probates. So if a property has to go through probate could take a week, it could take 3 months, it could take 6 months, it could take a year. It just really all depends. There's really no specific date or timeline when the process is completed. So could have been waiting who knows how long before the process was over with. And then the lawyer, well, I'm not gonna mention how much they were gonna charge him to do the probate, but that was another issue because of the fee that the lawyer was charging to take care of the probate. But even with the fee, if it was just a fee, it still wouldn't have went through because, again, the relative didn't want to sign off on it anyway, so the fee really didn't matter. But that's basically how I lost a potential $3,500. It sucked, but it happened. Another thing I want to just put out there to anybody who have a business, right? Like if you have a business, market yourself. Make sure you do some marketing. Let people know what you do. Let people know you have a business. You know what I mean? Whatever, if you're a barber and you cut hair and nobody knows you cut hair, you're not gonna have any clientele, right? So you gotta pass out cards, you gotta make flyers, you gotta make YouTube videos showing people that you cutting hair. Whatever you gotta do, put it all on your IG, all your social media platforms, man. Let people know what you do if you have a business. If you're a realtor, let people know that you sell houses or that you're a realtor. You know what I mean? You can help them buy a house. Because what happens is, me and my business, like I said, I have a business. It's called Creative Realty and Investments, LLC. But I market my business. I got a whole Facebook page, business page about my business. It's on all my social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. I got a Twitter account. All of that surrounded by my business. And I tell all my family and friends, my coworkers even know that I have a real estate business, because you never know what conversations those people are having with other people, right? So they could be at church, they could be at a store, they could be at the mall, and just be talking to a random person, and that person is looking for a house. Let's use that for an example. If you're a realtor, they may run into a person that's looking for a house, and the person's like, oh, I'm looking for a house, but I can't find a realtor. Or I'm trying to sell a house, but I can't really, find anybody that want to buy it or whatever. The first person that they're gonna think about, the person they're talking to, they're gonna think about you. If you told them what you do, they're gonna say, I know somebody that buy houses, or I know a realtor, right? I can get you in contact with them, or I can have them contact you, or however that conversation may go. But that's how you get referrals, and that's how you get business coming to you. So definitely let people know what you do. If I would have never let anybody know what I did, I wouldn't have got that phone call from my buddy. You know what I mean? Calling me up saying, hey, I know you sell houses. Like, I got one I want to sell. That's how I got my first 2 deals. For those of you that don't know and may not have seen in previous videos, but I got my first 2 deals off referrals. I just posted what I did. And so everybody know what I did, or what my other job is, right? I'm a full service driver. That's my 9-to-5 job, but I'm also an entrepreneur, and I have a real estate business, right? And I wholesale houses. So like I said, coworkers, they know. I don't know if the new guys know yet. Maybe one does, because he watches my YouTube channel faithfully. Shout out to Pat. He probably gonna watch this video, but he watches my channel faithfully, so he probably know. Or they may have had other drivers tell them about me doing real estate as well. So, but you definitely gotta let people know what you do in order for you to build your customer base up, your clientele, whatever you're doing. Don't be afraid to tell your friends and family members, right? Let everybody know what you do if you got a business, and put it on all social media platforms. But that's what I have for you guys today. Remember, if you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, and look, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.